Hello, everybody. I'm just waiting for enough people to show up so that we can get this thing started and kicked off in real time. And let me see. It looks like as though we have about, I know it's kind of weird to do it through YouTube Live, but that's cool. I think we have a few people coming and a few people are on right now, and we're going to get started, I would say, in about 1 or 2 minutes. Don't want to delay the start of this. Hey, Melvin, how's it going? Good to see you. Are you out of the Dallas area or something? I think I remember seeing something about you up in Dallas, or am I all wrong on that? Hola, Homero, ¿qué tal? ¿Cómo estás? Qué gusto verte. Okay, this is exciting. It looks like as though people are starting to, let me plug in my computer and we'll get started momentarily. Okay, I think it's time to get started. All right, cool, Melvin. I see that you are from the Dallas area. So let me get started. I'm going to start by kind of giving you a little bit of background as to what made me come up with the topic of the webinar and of the book, and I'll get launched right into the presentation. So I'm actually in the process of putting the finishing touches on a book that I'll be publishing next month. It's called Startup Book, Write a Book, Design a Category. And I've really spent the whole last year, pretty much the whole of 2023 and part of 2022, doing research from the book, interviewing people, reading books, watching videos, talking to different marketing experts, branding experts, etc., to kind of come up with the concepts in this book. And what it is sort of I've put a lot of concepts together to really kind of describe something that I've seen companies do organically. Um, and but the companies that have done these things that I'm going to be describing, um, it's kind of lightning in the bottle, right? They kind of stumbled upon what they did, or they thought about it, but there was never really any methodology that was spread out into the market about what they were doing. And what I decided to do, I said, you know what, I think it's time to start writing a book about it, and to, looking at all the different examples out there and then offering these services to customers. I'll give you an example of a client that I'm working with right now to sort of illustrate the concepts. And really, it kind of stemmed from my fascination of, there are some companies that will actually go out into the marketplace and they will write a book because they're maybe introducing a new technology or a completely new concept. And they'll write a book, or they'll actually introduce the concept, not even write a book about it. And I'll get into some of those in a minute. But they'll introduce a new concept, a new technology. They'll write a book about it. The book will kind of just explain exactly what this new concept is. And then that book, what they talk about in the book will kind of become part of the everyday vernacular or the lexicon of the market, right? And so the one example that I'm thinking about is a company called HubSpot. HubSpot, they were one of the pioneering software companies. I would say they get started around 2006, 2007 out of Boston, Massachusetts. That they started off their software company with a book. The founders, Dharmesh Shah and Brian Halligan. Brian Halligan was the CEO, Dharmesh Shah, the CTO. They both wrote a book called Inbound Marketing. Inbound marketing was a term that didn't exist before they wrote this book, right? And they wrote about this book because they wrote this book because they wanted to introduce this new concept called inbound marketing. Now, digital marketing existed before then, and digital marketing existed, but there was lots of different terms, and it was sort of like all a jumble. Inbound marketing kind of described a perfect methodology to sort of tie all those loose ends together that were going around. in the cloud, if you will, and they created something that thousands and thousands of companies follow today. And of course, guess what? That book and then their subsequent blog and their conference called Inbound did a great job of selling their software. Now their stock is trading at about $538 a share, and they're a multi-billion-dollar company publicly traded on Wall Street. Okay. So what they did was they essentially wrote a book and they also designed a new industry category. And so that's just one of the more obvious examples. And I'll get into that over here. And I think this is something that is now available to those of us, albeit on a smaller scale. We don't have most of us don't have the high the high dollar VC funding that HubSpot and others have. But the concepts are universal. And so let me go ahead and share my screen so that I could share the slides that I have put together for today. And then I'll also give a demonstration of how I've been using AI to help me in this process. Okay, so let's get the slideshow mode going. Here we go, slideshow. It said it right there. Okay, see it? Yep, this is me. Let me see about the contents. Okay, perfecto. Here we go, Sharon. Okay. Okay, fantastic. So this is me. Picture was taken a few years ago. And this is the kind of the concept for the book that I'm writing, the concept of the cover. I think I'm going to probably do a redesign, but this is sort of more or less what I visualized. Now, the sections of the book. So I'm actually very excited because this is the outline of the book that's coming out in February, right? So, essentially, I do an overview of designing a new category. Then I talk about writing the book that defined the category, and then I kind of get into a lot of the prompts that I've used to help my one client, Eduardo Ortiz, who I'm helping to write a book so that he can come into the U.S. market and start a new category. And I've also used AI for my own book, although I'm kind of a writer myself, so I try to use it as little as I could. And then I get into sort of like how you can create this whole marketing strategy by using a book and also promoting your category, right? And when you promote your category, you actually by default promote your company and promote your products, and it's all very good for you. Okay. So this is a question for you. Have you ever read a book that either changed your life or changed the industry? One of those groundbreaking books that you read and said, yes, that's exactly it. And it just kind of completely blew your mind and blew up the industry. There have been several, and I wanted to give you one example. Peter Drucker, one of my favorite business philosophers, he kind of came into prominence in the 1940s and 1950s, and he was a prolific book writer. But essentially, Peter Drucker is called the father of management, right? So before Peter Drucker came along, he wrote The Effective Executive, and he wrote Management, and he wrote all sorts of different books. Before that, the term management wasn't even really a term. It was just, okay, I'm the manager and I'm going to manage you employees and you're going to do exactly what I say. And if you don't, you're fired, right? So management was, just kind of happened by default with the invention of factories and with the invention of offices. And there was not a lot of discipline around it. Okay. So I would say that Peter Drucker was one of the early category designers, because through his books, he invented terms that have become now part of the everyday English language: knowledge worker, knowledge work, the practice of management, management consulting, et cetera, kind of comes from this whole Peter Drucker school of thought, right? So, like I said, Peter Drucker was a prolific book author, and his books changed the world. His books essentially changed the world of business and of management. But there's a lot of other books, and unfortunately, since I'm a marketer, I have used a lot of marketing books as examples. But if you look at The books in this example, you'll see that they've been earth shattering. They've been books that have established new categories, invented new vocabulary, introduced new words into the English language to describe new concepts, right? So, you have the One-to-One Future, Don Peppers and Martha Rogers. They essentially created this whole, you know, they were the beginning, they were the pioneers of internet marketing, even before internet marketing became a thing. They kind of invented the whole concept that we now encapsulate in CRM, customer relationship management software. I would say that Seth Godin was the first person who wrote the first book on what we know as internet marketing today, permission marketing. Permission marketing was groundbreaking. It introduced this whole concept of, I'm not going to interrupt you anymore with advertising that interrupts you in the middle of a cliffhanger on this TV program you're watching. Instead, I'm going to provide you with very valuable content. And because you like my content, you're going to give me permission through subscribing to my newsletter to continue to market to you because, by the way, my marketing is very valuable to you. So permission marketing was this concept that is now kind of underlies all of internet marketing. It's the basis of content marketing, and that's what Seth Godin, introduced with his book Permission Marketing. He introduced a ton of concepts, and he's a prolific book writer. I think he's written about 10, 15 books or more out there. All of them have introduced new words in the English vocabulary, and actually in many different languages vocabularies. Again, I mentioned Inbound Marketing by Brian Halligan and Dharmesh Shah. Solution selling, selling large software projects in the millions of dollars required a different type of selling. And, before that, it was like they were trying to sell using, companies like IBM and Oracle and Siebel Systems are trying to sell software. And they were it was kind of like trying to feel your way through the dark until Michael Bosworth came in and created solution selling. And of course, the words that he coined in his book, again, introduced new vocabulary. Okay. And so there's all these books. Customer Success. Customer Success is another one of these books that were written by the founders of a software company. So the software company was called Gainsight. And Nick Mehta, Dan Steinman, Lincoln Murphy, these were the founders of this software company. Gainsight is the first software platform focused exclusively on this new category of employee called Customer Success Manager. Customer Success Manager is different from an account manager. An account manager, their role is to sell more software or to sell more stuff to customers that have already become customers of the company, right? And then customer support manager is somebody who deals with customer complaints or, errors with the software. Customer success is a new position that came about with the advent of software as a service, right? So software as a service, subscription software. It's not a one-time purchase where you implement the software on your servers. No, software as a service is something you rent. So you got to keep your customers happy if you want them to renew at the end of the year. And so this whole customer success position was invented essentially when Salesforce.com invented software as a service. And these guys, Gainsight, were the first ones to write the book that sort of codified all the processes and the vocabulary that customer success managers use today, right? So this has been a very successful book. I think it's read by almost every customer success manager out there. And by the way, their software has been the happy beneficiary of the spread of this new term called customer success. Now, granted, I don't think these guys actually coined the term customer success manager. It kind of happened by default, but because they wrote the book about it and they sort of designed the category, they've hijacked it and become the owners of it. Okay, so what is category design? And let me see if I have any questions. I don't think I have any questions. Okay, good. Everybody seems to be absorbing and understanding everything. What is category design? Okay, I remember I was posting on Facebook, of all places, that I was writing a book about category creation. And then a bunch of friends of mine, I think Steve Roller and some other friends, Jen Phillips, April, posted, well, you got to read the book Snow Leopard. Snow Leopard. What in the hell is Snow Leopard? So Snow Leopard is a book written by the Category Pirates, and I highly recommend that you all read the book Snow Leopard. It has a beautiful cover with the picture of a snow leopard in a forest full of snow. But snow leopard, what it essentially means is that a snow leopard is different from all the other leopards. So the whole concept is, you want to be different. You don't want to blend in with everybody else. You don't want to do what everybody else is doing and just try and be better, faster, cheaper, higher quality. No, that's the road to being generic. What you want to do is you want to design a new category, hence the snow leopard thing. And actually, the category pirates, think of them as a rock band, but they're instead of doing rock music, they write books together. So the category pirates are Christopher Lochhead, Nicholas Cole, Eddie Yoon, and they've actually now written several books, including Snow Leopard. This is their latest one. If you're really interested in category design, I recommend you go out and buy this book and read all the chapters, the 22 Laws of Category Design. But essentially, just to kind of create a little synopsis about it, category design is about the exponentially different. It's about creating different futures by creating new and different business categories. Category design is not about competing, it's about creating. Emphasis is mine, right? So it's not about competing, it's about creating. And if you think about it, what's been drummed into our heads since we were little kids? Competition. Competition is the way. Competition is how we succeed in business. We want to be better than the other guy, than the next business. But what the category pirates talk about is no, you don't want to compete. That's the race to the bottom. What you want to do is you want to be exponentially different. You want to be a category king or queen in your own category. All right. And so think about Starbucks, for example, right? So before Starbucks came around, I was doing some research before the webinar about the origins of Starbucks. They were started in Seattle, not by Howard Schultz. Howard Schultz came later, and it was started by three guys who were kind of like hippies, and they decided that they wanted to provide gourmet coffee beans. They went to San Francisco, and there was already a gourmet coffee shop. It was a one of a kind. I don't think there was anything else like it in the country. It was called Peet's Coffee, right? So everybody, I'm sure some of you all are familiar with Peet's Coffee. Peet's Coffee was one of the very first places in the United States, actually, that were serving this, but they kind of stayed local. And so they imported beans from San Francisco to Seattle and started selling gourmet, freshly roasted beans, dark roast, because at the time in the United States, the coffee that you would get was rancid, burned, watery coffee, the kind of crappy coffee you get at gas stations. There was no such thing as coffee culture or even being a coffee connoisseur in the United States, right? So Starbucks introduced this new category. Howard Schultz came later in the early 1980s. He's this brash New York guy, and he had this vision of actually turning Starbucks from being a bean wholesaler to introducing Italian coffee culture to the United States, right? So the thing that sort of changed Howard Schultz's life and his perspective on coffee culture was he did a trip in the 80s to Milan, Italy, and he saw how the Italians, their life kind of revolved around these these local coffee shops, and the coffee was just delicious, and people were actually regular everyday Joes in the street were connoisseurs of coffee, and people would come in the morning, in the afternoon, in the evening. They'd meet together. They'd discuss politics and the latest soccer results, whether Juventus and Inter Milan were doing good or whatever. And he got so excited, he decided to bring it back to Starbucks. The owners didn't like the idea, so he left and started a company called Il Giorno or whatever the name is. And then when the Starbucks coffee guys were selling Starbucks, he jumped at the chance, and he introduced coffee culture to the United States, right? He introduced the term cappuccino because cappuccinos weren't really a thing in the United States. Then they invented frappuccinos, and they didn't invent, but they introduced terms from Italy like oh God, the name escapes me right now because I only drink black coffee myself. Venti and Grande and Tall. But nowadays people go to coffee shops, and it's not just Starbucks. It's like, now you have all these little local coffee shops around the United States, Mexico, where I am right now, and every part of the world, thanks to Starbucks kind of inventing this new category. It wasn't a new category in Italy, but they invented the new category in the United States, and they changed coffee forever, and it enabled them to charge a lot more money for coffee than what you could buy coffee for at a gas station, right? So that's one of the things that I'm going to talk about in a minute about the power of designing your own category, is that you change not only the vocabulary and, I guess, the industry category, but you change the economics, the business model. You change so many different things, so that it actually kind of creates this change that even affects the culture if you can get as big as Starbucks. Okay. All right. So why design a new category? And let me see if there is any questions over here. Sharon said, Venti. Yeah, exactly. All right. So why design a new category? Right. So the category pirates have done their research, and they said that when you create your new category and you're active in defending your status as the category king or queen, that means you get to have 76% of the category economics. Okay. So, and this is very important, especially if you think about it from the point of view of a Silicon Valley venture capitalist. Silicon Valley venture capitalists now are looking for software companies that can essentially be category designers and category kings, right? Because if you can dominate the 76% of the category economics of your category, that means that you get the largest market share, you get the lion's share of the sales of your category, the lion's share of the company valuation of your category, and then suppose other companies decide to come in and say, okay, I want to join your category. I also want to be an inbound marketing software company, right? So then all these other Me Too copycats want to come in, and maybe they're slightly different, slightly better, slightly cheaper, slightly whatever, this whole thing about competing, the fast race to the bottom. But guess what they're doing? They're competing for that 24% left of the market that you have left them, all those crumbs that they're fighting for, right? And that's why VCs love companies that can invent and dominate their own category, because that means that they can become, they have a high likelihood now of becoming a whale, or becoming, what do you call it? Not a dolphin, a unicorn. Okay, there you go. Right. So you dominate the category, right? Companies that create new categories or successfully redesign existing categories create exponentially more value for both shareholders and the entire market. And that is a quote, a direct quote from the 22 Laws of Category Design, written by the Category Pirates. You avoid the whole Me Too value proposition. So just think about this. If you look at, the whole marketing automation software space, and this just, your eyes start to get to glaze over just looking at all these logos. And who wants to research all these companies and figure out what's the best one for your company? Nobody. I mean, it's just a chore. It's a work of drudgery to have to go and figure out, well, what's the best one for me? And maybe this one has one more or two more features that the other one didn't have, or this one may have may shave off a few $100 so that you can get it right in your budget or whatever. But at the end of the day, these are all competing in this marketing automation category that I think, who invented marketing automation? Salesforce kind of did. You think about Eloqua or Marketo, etc. But then you go in and you see all these other competitors. That's not a game that VCs want to get in on. That's not a game that you want to play. You want to play a game where you're actually the dominant player in your own category. Okay, so let's just say you invent your new category, and then what do you do after that, right? Well, the smart ones, they'll market the category. So if you think about HubSpot, HubSpot, what they did after they wrote their book and then they started their very famous and successful blog is they did exactly the opposite of what your SEO consultant will tell you. What does an SEO person do? Search engine optimization. So somebody who's an expert in search optimization will say, oh, do the keyword research, find the most highly trafficked keywords and try and rank for them. Go out and get links so that they can link to your highly optimized page that ranks or that's optimized for these keywords. Because what you want to do is you want to go and get all the keywords that all your competitors are going for. Right. HubSpot did not do that. The term inbound marketing did not appear in Google searches in 2007 when they started, right? But what they did was that they started marketing the category. They wrote the book about inbound marketing. They started blogging prolifically about inbound marketing, about attract, convert, excite, etc. All the terms. I forget all the terms that they invented because it's not just inventing a category; it's also inventing the vocabulary that describes the methodology of your category. So what they did was they actually went out there and they marketed inbound marketing. They didn't, you could hardly see any mention of the word HubSpot software in any of their blog posts, except if you went up to the URL of the blog post you were reading and you saw HubSpot.com. Okay. So what you do is you go out and you market your category, right? And when you market your category, your software or your service or your product, your coffee, your special sweet bread, your new healthy carnitas dish, your vegan carnitas dish or whatever, your product is the beneficiary of this new category and it becomes the category king or queen. Okay. And then you invent the vocabulary, languaging. I'm actually going to give you examples of some of the languaging that have come from both some thought leaders in the industry as well as a client that I'm working with from Mexico. Okay. So your category creation book is the manifesto for your category. So any questions for now? I'm going to see if there are any questions that pop up. And if I see them pop up, I'm using my cell phone to look at all the questions that come up. I will answer them over here. Okay. So you want to write a book that becomes the manifesto for your category, right? And this book has a lot of benefits. I'll talk about the benefits of the book in a minute. Apart from just designing a category, it has many other benefits. It's been referred to, the book has been referred to as the most valuable business card you can have. I think you all know this, but I think there's an extra twist to that, which is this whole category design book thing. But in the book, you talk about the languaging. So you introduce the new vocabulary. You describe the process, So like, oh, do you want to know how to do inbound marketing? Here are the 7 steps to becoming an inbound marketing expert. So HubSpot's book, Inbound Marketing, not only introduced the concept of inbound marketing, but it became an educational book. It became a book that has been used time and time again as sort of like the guidebook for the industry, right? If you want to know how to do inbound marketing, because now inbound marketing is a thing, thanks to HubSpot's publishing of their book, their prolific blogging, and their conference, you can go to their book and you could learn how to do inbound marketing. The frameworks, the standards, the inspiration, this all benefits your company, obviously, okay? And this is a quote from a local legend in Austin, Texas. I'm from Austin. And we love this guy. His name is, oh, shoot. I forgot what his name is. Roy Williams. Roy Williams is, he has a beautiful ranch just southwest of Austin, Texas. And his ranch is, that's where he has a lot of seminars. He actually has a wedding chapel there called the Dulcinea Wedding Chapel. He is a huge fan of Cervantes and all of his literature, and he has a castle there that sort of replicates the Don Quixote castle, and Dulcinea is a fictional figure from Don Quixote. So if you go to Austin, go to the ranch that Roy Williams owns. And it's actually a nonprofit ranch. It's beautiful. But anyway, you go there and you can go to a seminar that has beautiful little medieval castle that almost kind of looks like a castle from an old movie or something, right? So what he said was, they who control the vocabulary control the industry. Words are so important. And when you introduce these new terms, which I'll show you in just a second, you can essentially, control the vocabulary of your industry. So I want you to consider these terms. For those of us who are in digital marketing, I'm sure you recognize conversion rate optimization, bounce rate, persuasion architecture. These are all commonly used digital marketing vocabulary items. Conversion rate optimization means, the process of improving your website or your landing pages so that they can convert more visitors into leads and more leads into buyers, right? Bounce rate is a term used in SEO to describe, okay, is your page bouncing people away? If they come to your page because they search something on Google, they come to your page and they say, oh, that page, that's not relevant. That's not what I was looking for at all. I'm going back. That's called bounce, right? So what's the bounce rate of your page? And then persuasion architecture is, how do you structure your landing page, your website, so that you could persuade people to buy your product, right? Where did all these words come from? They didn't just exist out of nowhere. They didn't just kind of come out of nowhere. No, they were invented by these guys, Brian and Jeffrey Eisenberg, two good old New York City guys who have made their home in Austin, Texas, hook 'em horns. These guys are great. Not only are they like the OGs of internet marketing, but they're extremely nice and humble guys. And again, the other thing that kind of make these guys stand apart, and they kind of put them in this whole category of category designers, is that they're prolific book authors, right? So you'll start to see a kind of a thread here. If you want to design a category, you write a book, and don't stop at one book, write a bunch of books, okay? So they've written a couple of, these are just two of the books they've written. Waiting for a Cat to Bark. Actually, I interviewed Brian for my book, and he told me that they actually got a real cat for this photo shoot. This is before the days of AI, and they took thousands of pictures of this cat, waiting for the perfect smirk or the perfect face expression. And then the cat did a thing that kind of looked like a smirk, and that's what they used for the cover of Waiting for Your Cat to Bark, right? So Waiting for Your Cat to Bark, and again, Call to Action. These are books that they published in the early 2000s. I think Waiting for Your Cat to Bark was 2005, 2006, 2007, more or less. But these guys, they invented these words, right? They were the ones who invented, the conversion rate optimization category. And another thing that they invented is they I don't know if they necessarily invented it, but because of the fact that they wanted to do email marketing, and they created a mailing list of 40,000 subscribers so that they could continue to market to them. This was in 1999, before we had MailChimp, before we had ConvertKit, Aweber, etc. So they had to actually build their own software to do all that stuff. So these guys were true veterans of internet marketing. But again, they invented the category, and they became, and I think the only thing I think that happened was that, as with so many entrepreneurs, is that I wouldn't say they got distracted. Entrepreneurs, we're constantly curious about new things, and so they've started going in different directions because they see opportunities and they take advantage of them. And I think the whole conversion rate optimization industry, they stopped being the owners of the industry, right? So now you have people like Pep Laya, Brian Massey, a whole bunch of other people who are kind of like, Brian Massey, another local Austin guy. He's the what do you call it? Not the conversion scientist. So he branded himself as the conversion scientist. He wears lab coats in all of his pictures, great branding, but he didn't invent the category. He just, took advantage of it. And I think now there's actually probably a little bit more than 24% of the category to become a member of, because of the fact that the Eisenbergs sort of like took their eyes off the ball and went off to bigger and better things, right? All right. Now here's an example of category terms that I am using with my client. So I'm working now with a client, and we're actually implementing all these principles that I'm talking to you about with his strategy. This company, this friend of mine, Ed Ortiz, or Eduardo Ortiz Ramirez. He was rebranded for the U.S. market to be Ed Ramirez, which sounds more Mexican American, I guess. But his real name is Eduardo Ortiz. He owns a software development company, right? So if you want to have an app made and there's nothing that exists in the market, you call Ed. His team will come in and they'll build an app for you, okay? And they're very successful. They work with some of the largest companies in Mexico, and now he wants to come into the U.S. market because they're really doing some cutting edge stuff with AI and with all the latest and greatest technologies out there, with a lot of Java and all that kind of stuff. So what we're doing is we're writing a book called Revolutionizing Retail Inventory Management with Artificial Intelligence. So their book is about how retail chains, think about Walmart, think about Target, but their book is focused on smaller chains, right? Think about Zara clothing stores or all those kind of stores, how they can revolutionize their inventory management with artificial intelligence. There's no book out there. We've done the research. There's nothing that talks about it. Great opportunity. He's already done this in Mexico. He wants to start doing this for US customers because US customers pay more. And so we came up with some terms, for example, shelf intelligence, leveraging computer vision. Computer vision is a new technology that Amazon and Google now use, which essentially it gives intelligence to a camera and allows cameras to actually recognize, or computers to recognize objects, right? So leveraging computer vision and IoT sensors to gain unparalleled real-time visibility into product levels, movements, and trends across retail shelves. If you're in the retail inventory management space, I guess this would make more sense. Smart stocking, using predictive analytics and optimization algorithms to dynamically set tailored inventory policies, safety stocks, and reorder points. Inventory harmony. This is kind of like the key concept for retailers. Achieving the optimal automated balance between inventory levels, cost, revenues, and customer service through AI and advanced analytics. Think about the toilet paper shortage during the pandemic, right? The toilet paper shortage was a disaster. People would go and they needed toilet paper, and the shelves were gone, right? With artificial intelligence and implementing these methodologies, retailers could have avoided that, because what they can do is they can take into consideration all this data from outside of their own industry, right? So it'll analyze demographic data, weather data, it'll analyze news reports, customer behavior. It does a lot of predictive analytics, et cetera. So, and plus the retail industry works on razor thin margins, right? So if they have an overstock of something, or if they have an understock of something, because a lot of companies are trying to keep just the bare minimum so they don't have to have all these inventory carrying costs. And if they miss the mark on the bare minimum, they'll run out and they'll lose sales and they'll have angry customers, et cetera. AI for inventory management is the key. In fact, this is the new category that I'm helping my client to invent. And he's going to go out there and rock the world. He's decided to go and say, you know what, I'm going to focus on the retailers and offer them AI inventory management. And this is the vocabulary I'm introducing. And this is where the work begins, because the whole hard work after that begins with going out, giving speeches at conferences, getting on podcasts, writing blogs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All right. So, fantastic. Okay. Where are we right now? All right. And then this is my friend, Sharon DeCaro. She designed the book cover for Ed's book, Revolutionizing Retail Inventory Management with AI. I like the cover, and Eduardo likes the cover as well. Right. So this is the book that we're releasing his book at the end of February as well. So my book and his book are coming out at the same time. A lot to juggle, but we can do it. Okay. All right. So now let's talk about the book that you're going to write uh, for to dominate your category, right? So the category pirates, what they also did was that they did research. They researched about 400 books on Amazon in the nonfiction category. And what they did was they researched what is it that what is it about the bestsellers in nonfiction that makes them bestsellers, right? So what they did was they did all this research and they figured out that the books that become bestsellers, especially in business category uh, nonfiction, that these were the top categories, I guess, for companies to write. So if you want to write a book, if you want to write a book that can become a bestseller, and basically it's pretty easy now to do a bestseller. You don't have to be a New York Times or Wall Street Journal bestseller anymore. You can have a bestseller in 1 day of sales or 2 days or 3 days of sales within a very narrow Amazon category. Kindle, Amazon Kindle has so many different sub niches of categories within different books that I guess with just a few hundred sales in 1 day, you could become a bestseller for a day. But what they determined was that if you wanted to write a nonfiction book that has a high probability of becoming a bestseller, is you write it in these categories. So the first one, the ones that were probably the most that had the highest chance of becoming a bestseller was personal development books, right? And so these are books that have advice for, for wealth, for business, for success, health, love, money. Those are the three big categories of personal development: health, relationships, and money, or wealth, and love. The next one was personal finance. If we go down to number four, leadership, you think about books like by you know these are autobiographical books by business leaders. Think about the book Howard Schultz of Starbucks wrote. Think about who was the guy who was the CEO, the very successful CEO for a while of GE. Um, I forget what his name was, but all these books that are sort of like more from a personal point of view, they're not as successful. They're not as successful as ones that are like, I'm writing to you to give you advice about this and that and the other. Okay. So if you want to think about, and again, they talk about this in the 22 laws of category design and in Snow Leopard. But if you want to think about writing your category creation book, think about probably focusing in on the personal development or personal finance space. If you think about the book Inbound by HubSpot Marketing, it was a business book, a business marketing book that could be considered within the personal development um, genre, if you will. Now, this is very different from the Amazon genres. In fact, let me see if I can show you all um, some Amazon genres because it's really interesting. If you want to write a book, before you even start writing, I think it's important to start looking at um, categories within Amazon. Okay. So let's look at the Amazon categories. First of all, and let's go to Kindle. Oh, wait a minute. Let's just see over here. Okay, so let's look at, I want to get the Kindle thing first, and then I can show you. Okay, Kindle books. Here we go. So if you go to Amazon, I guess you kind of have to look for a book first for this extra menu to show up, right? So then if you look for Kindle books and then you want to look at Kindle ebooks, so there's another menu that shows up right underneath here. Okay. And then there is, okay, here we go. There's a category here called bestsellers and more. And this is where you can see all the categories. And let's see if we can, let's go to Kindle bestsellers right here. And again, this is all being recorded, so you'll have the link for this, and you can come back and kind of you can come back and sort of look through this, because you kind of have to sort of trace your way back to these things. And it's a little convoluted, but let's go to Kindle eBooks over here. And so this is where you see all the categories, right? So let me kind of go back and try and explain. So if you think about these category creation books, this is what the Category Pirates found to be the categories that were on the top bestsellers list. If you think about personal development within, let me see, business and money, right? So you have business and money, and then you have I think there's a software. Wait, there was a software category. Let's go back to the software category. So you have business. Okay, you have computers and technology. Okay. So you have all these categories. And I think when it comes to my client's book, what we did was we decided to choose computer science. We came up with, there was a couple of other categories that we chose for his book. But if you think about these categories, this is what you would list your book for sale on in Kindle, right? So when you upload your manuscript to Kindle, if you're doing self-publishing, and you choose the categories that your book should be listed under, when people do a search and they do a search for computerized home and entertainment or computer science or whatever, your book will come up. Okay, that's one concept of category. And this is what you're going to do so that you can become a bestseller in one of these categories. What I'm talking about over here is the style of writing, right? You know, are you going to write a personal development book within the computer science category, right? So it's kind of a subtle difference, but what we're doing is with our book that we're talking about AI for inventory management, we're choosing some business and computer categories, but the way we're writing the book is we're writing a book as a guide, not to technologists. We're not writing this to the CTOs and the VP of engineering of retailers. We're writing this to the to the chief operating officer, to the CEO. We're writing our technology book to the business people, because at the end of the day, technology has a business benefit, and that's how we come up with this whole thing about personal development, personal finance, insights thinking, etc. Okay, so I know it's a little convoluted. When you read the book, you'll see. But this is how you become a bestseller. You first of all choose what category your book is going to be sold under, and then you just get a ton of people to buy your book on the first day. And I'm gonna do another webinar in which I explain that, and I want to see if I can get one of my friends, Alexandria Castrillon, who is an expert in creating bestsellers, to become a guest. Would you all like for Alexandra to come in? Okay, and then my friend Sharon DeCaro, who is on and commenting, she said that she can help with cover designs. Okay, time check 12:48. Ooh, so. And I'll get into this. You can actually subscribe to the mini course that I have on my website where we describe a little bit about this. But to design a new category in your book, what you want to do is you want to focus on problem solution, right? Problem solution is, what is the big problem that your market is having, and what's your unique solution to the problem, right? So the best way to illustrate this is to think about Uber. Uber solved a problem that everybody had, getting in a dirty, unreliable taxi with a moody taxi driver, sometimes maybe a scary taxi, especially if it's, midnight in New York City and you want to get home safely. There may not be a cab. They may not stop for you, or they may not want to take you up to, the Upper East Side or the Harlem or whatever, right? Uber came around, and all of a sudden those problems became so obvious. It's like, damn, how could I have not realized that there was an alternative until now, right? So what did Uber do? Uber solved an obvious problem with a non-obvious solution. Now, if you solve an obvious problem with an obvious solution, you're competing again. You're trying to be better, faster, cheaper, more luxurious. But when you go into an obvious problem with a non-obvious solution, ride sharing, who ever heard of ride sharing? That's a non-obvious solution. Or if you can solve a non-obvious problem, a problem that people didn't really notice before until you pointed it out with an obvious solution, these are the recipes for success when it comes to inventing a new category and writing the book about it. If you want to solve a non-obvious problem with a non-obvious solution, that's what's called being 10 years ahead of your time, and it's not going to get you anywhere right now, right? So I would avoid doing this. Okay. Now, I think this is the step that you all were waiting for, and I think maybe I should do another webinar to explain this process. But the AI book writing process, what I'm doing with my client is I'm doing a variation of this, and then a variation of a book writing process that I took a class with a guy called Zachariah Stratford, a local Austin guy. Zachariah Stratford has a book challenge called the One Book Millionaire process. But what I did with my client is we decided, okay, the great thing about my client, Ed Ramirez, is that he already had an idea for his book, right? And he already had an outline. So it was like very serendipitous that we met each other, right? And all I had to do was interview him, okay? So we set up a series of interviews. That's what, and this is the Content Factory approach graphic that I stole from Dennis Yu. Dennis Yu is great. You should go out and consume his content. But what you do is you get maybe a keynote presentation or maybe a podcast or two or three that you've done. And in this case, what I did was I sat down and I did 10 interviews with Ed, and I interviewed him in Spanish. Even though his English is perfect, he just felt more comfortable doing the interview in Spanish. So we essentially did 10 interviews, and then we turned these interviews into a transcription using Descript, and I'm going to show you that in a minute. And then with the transcription, then we used, and in this case, they are missing. I think this graphic was created in 2022 before ChatGPT and Claude came out. But what I did then after I got the transcription was in Spanish. I got ChatGPT to translate it into English. It does great at translations. But you have to go in and catch some things because, if you're not familiar with English, and you see some of the translations it does, there's some things that are a little off. So with all of this process, you got to put in your human mind, and your human voice to do that last 20 to 30% of the work, right? So AI can get you 80% of the way, and then you, with your expertise in writing or what have you, have to finish the other 20%. So we use the transcription. We got it translated with ChatGPT, and then we used ChatGPT to kind of painstakingly go through each chapter and each section of each chapter and turn it into a manuscript, right? So let's get into some of the details, and let me see. Let me see. Can y'all write in there, just tell me if y'all are still here. Everybody who's still here, just write here in the comments, okay? So I'm going to show you, this is Descript, okay? And this is what I did with my client. Now, I went back to all the chapters of my client, and like chapter 10, chapter 5 and 6, etc., and they're gone. I mean, I think that I did that, a few months ago. But let's look at a recent transcript that I did. So I got a recording of an interview with this guy called Luis Arciaga. Okay, Casey. All right. Melvin. All right, perfect. So I did okay, it's taking a long time. But what I did was I took basically it takes audio like MP4 or video MP4, MP3, M4A, all that kind of stuff. And this is just great. Just when I'm presenting this to the crowd, it gets hung up on me. All right, Monica. Great to see you here, Monica. Okay. I don't know what's going on with this. Let me see if I can get another example of okay, so the actual independent software wasn't working. So I guess I'm going to have to use the software as a service version to show you what Descript does. So Descript is pretty cool. It has a desktop version that you just download as an application onto your laptop, or it has or you can use it as a browser-based software. And dum-de-dum. Let me see. By the way, I'm making coffee with an AeroPress coffee maker. It's the best thing since, I don't know, since sliced bread just doesn't seem to cut it. It's just the best thing in the world. Does anybody use the AeroPress coffee maker here or the French press? Descript might be having, okay, here we go. So I want to just show you what I did with this transcript. So basically, this was an interview in Spanish with this guy called Luis Arciaga, and it automatically turns it into, here we go. All right. So Cecilia interviewed this guy, Luis Arciaga, and it turns it into text, right? So there's also stuff in English. And so the great thing about Descript is that it's multilingual. It can create a transcription. Let me see if there is one in English for you all to see. Back to projects. Okay, here we go. Pre-press webinar. We did a webinar on pre-press. Pre-press for printing, essentially. And we had it all transcribed. But anyway, I think you get the point. You know, I don't think I necessarily have to wait for this lumbering thing to load after a million years. But after we get the stuff transcribed, I take it to ChatGPT. And let me go and take you over here because I got it at the right place. I had it translated into English by ChatGPT. Like I said, it does a great job. And then this is what I did, right? So Zachariah Stratford, I recommend you join one of his free challenges. He's got this free One Book Millionaire AI challenge. I got a lot of my prompts from him, but then I kind of tweaked it because his prompts were really more for actually creating a book from scratch using AI. But what I wanted to do is I wanted to just take the transcript of what my client told me. He already had all the information already in his head. He spoke it to me. So think about, God speaking the world into existence. My client spoke his book into his existence, translated the transcript into English. And now this is what I said. I said, Chat, you will help me write the book, Revolutionizing Retail Inventory Management with AI, a strategic guide to enhanced efficiency and profitability. By the way, I use the pro version of ChatGPT, $20 a month. It's worth its weight in gold, even more. Right now, I need you to write chapter 3, The Pioneering Power of Computer Vision in Retail. I will paste the transcript of an interview I conducted with the book author. Please just read the transcript and say, I read it. Don't write anything other than I read it. Here's the transcript. So I just pasted everything that he said. See, you can see it's kind of a jumbled mess, but it has all the core information about what chapter 3 was all about, right? So what I did was I pasted it there, and then ChatGPT did what I told it to do. I said, I read it. I said, okay, now based on that transcript, I'm going to paste a basic outline I came up with. So this was the basic outline for chapter 3. It wasn't very detailed. It was just, these are the 3 sections. And I asked ChatGPT, based on the transcript for chapter 3. Can you give me a more detailed outline, right? So it's great. So it gave me a detailed outline of the 3 initial sections that it gave it. It gave me actually 2 additional sections. All right. And then I asked ChatGPT. So what I did was I copied this part of the chapter, right? Because each chapter has to be detailed and each chapter has to be outlined in detail. So what I did was I copied this section of the outline for chapter 3 only, and I pasted it right here. I said, based on the transcript that I had previously pasted, and the following section of the outline, please write the first section of chapter 3 in an austere, direct, concise, no nonsense tone and style. Omit needless words and keep prepositions, adjectives, and adverbs to a minimum. This is very important that you do this, because if you see a lot of this content that is written by ChatGPT, it just sounds so kind of corny, and it just has that sort of like what do you call it, that telltale sign. Oh, that content was written by ChatGPT. I can't believe that person just copy and pasted that content wholesale into LinkedIn. So you don't want to do that, right? So you want to do is you want to give it detailed instructions to kind of take away the flowery language, the fluff, the stuff that makes it look, like a ChatGPT thing, right? And then you tell it to do it, and then it goes to town, right? and it did a great job. But then sometimes, you kind of have to play with this, right? So it didn't do enough. It didn't create enough content. So I said, let's do this again and make sure this section is at least 500 words. Write this section now. This is a thing that ChatGPT does. So it's so typical in the modern age of technological wonders. So it kind of didn't follow my instructions to the letter. And I would never start a sentence or a chapter like this. So what I did was when I pasted this into Google Docs, and I'm using Google Docs for the book. I know, very basic, but it works. I took this out and I replaced it with something that sounded more human, right? But this is how I did with the book. And I experimented a lot with the book. I actually rewrote I would say the majority of the book. I would say I rewrote the whole book 3 times using the exact same transcript. I didn't have to interview my client again. But what I did was I had to feed it to him again, because on my first try, I tried to get ChatGPT to write the complete chapter in one go. First of all, ChatGPT only writes about 500 to 600 words in a go. So you have to come up with this convoluted process, and Zachariah Stratford does this convoluted process. He has this special instructions that say, hey, chat, write section 1 of the chapter first, and then stop, and then tell me to continue, and then I'll tell you to continue, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I did that, and it'll write the first section, and then it'll say, do you want me to continue, sir? It doesn't say sir, but do you want me to continue? I said, yes, please continue. I did that, but along the way, it kind of lost the script. It kind of forgot about what it was supposed to write about, and it just came up with a bunch of stuff that it made up on its own. And so what I did was I kind of came up with my own style, with my own way of doing it. And what I did was I just basically fed it section by section. Say, okay, now write this section in this voice, using this language, etc. And that's how I did it. So I rewrote each one of the chapters, I think about 2 or 3 times using ChatGPT, not only going chapter by chapter, but going section by section. And then I went in after the fact, and let me see if I can find that. After the fact. I went in after the fact and added some external content, right? Where's the what I did was I actually did some research. Where is it? Revise lyrics not available. Oh, here we go. Okay. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to enhance the book with some external research, right? Because my client is brilliant. He has everything in his mind, but you don't want to have a book that's just what's in your brain, right? You want to enhance your book with examples and external research, et cetera. So I did that. And what I did was I got an article about Zara, the Spanish retailer where you can buy really nice clothes for a really good price. And I basically pasted the text of this article, and then I got chat to sort of reword it for me. And then what I did was I pasted it in a section of the book. I did I wrote a transition by hand, because I am a book author. I wrote a book myself back in 2017, totally by hand, back in the good old days. And I did a transition, and I actually cited the research. And so this is going to be one of the several citations we have in the book to do that, right? So that's how we wrote the book. And I think I've pretty much run out of time. I wasn't able to go over the whole outline of that I talked about at the very beginning. Let me see the whole outline of my actual book itself. So this was, I think I was a little bit over ambitious. I thought I was going to be able to go over the whole book, but I'll be doing these webinars, I would say pretty frequently. I think I want to do another one next week. First of all, I would like to ask you to write in the comments to say, what would you like me to go over next week? You can come and see it live. I'll record it as well, and you can get the links to it. So number one, what would you like to see at the next section, at the next edition of this webinar series? And then number two, I'm going to actually ask you for a favor. I plan to launch this book at the end of February or beginning of March. And like I told you before, if I can get a bunch of pre-sales for Amazon. So Amazon has this thing where you can set a launch date for the book, and the go live date can, let's just say, pulling this out of the air, I'm going to sell my book on the 1st of March. Okay, so that's what I'm going to say. I'm going to say my book goes live and you can get the book on the 1st of March. But Amazon allows you to do a pre-sale of the book. Okay, so you can actually open it up for sale, I would say even a month or even 2 months before the book is for sale. And I'm going to put it for sale for 99 cents. And when you pre-buy the book, this is what happens. You actually go put your credit card in your Amazon and you pre-buy it, but actually it doesn't even charge your credit card until the launch day. So suppose today, and it's not even, I don't even have the book landing page on Amazon yet, but let's just say I have it available next week on the 16th of January. You put your credit card number in, you pre-buy it. It doesn't charge your credit card on the 16th. But when the book goes live on the 1st of March, it will charge your credit card, and it counts all those books that I have pre-sold before the 1st of March. It counts all those sales as a sale on that day at the 1st of March. And that gives me a really good fighting chance of turning this book into a bestseller. It would be my first bestseller. My first book, I didn't do anything to promote it that much. But would you all be willing to do that for me? Can I get a yes in the comments from everybody who's here? Would you be willing to spend 99 cents to get an initial copy of my book? All right. Yeah, and by the way, there's a delay. I think there's maybe about a 10 or 15-second delay from what I say here. But whew, all right. I see Kevin is there, and oh, this is a good turnout. But anyway, I look forward to getting your replies, and if there's any questions, I'll look forward to seeing them. All right, Melvin says yes. Kevin says absolutely. Oh, and Kevin, you want a signed version of the book? Okay, cool. All right, and Juan Urubaru says yes. Okay, I'm excited. I think you all are going to help me put this over the top. Okay, so I don't think there's any questions coming up right now. And what I'll do is I'm going to sign off, and hopefully I'll see you here next. I'm going to actually schedule another webinar for next Thursday at the same time, and I'll go over. I'll survey everybody in the email list, and I'll see what you all want me to cover. Maybe we'll get into some more detailed. Maybe I could do a live book writing exercise with ChatGPT, or maybe I could talk about what we're going to do to promote my client with the book. Because at the end of the day, the purpose of the book is to get more business and to grow your business, right? So it's not, I'm sure you all don't just want to be, best-selling authors using AI as a way to shortcut the book writing process. I'm sure, I know that my whole goal is to help my clients and to help myself to make to create a new category, and to use this book to grow mine and his business exponentially. But anyway, I appreciate it so much. You spent your Thursday afternoon with me. I hope you all had a coffee or a tea with you, and go out and have some lunch. And I'll see you next Thursday. Bye bye.